how do we compare jobs within industry and consulting? It's really, really hard to really nail this down exactly, and I'm going to explain why. Industry is so broad, and so is consulting. And even the types of roles you can do within a consulting company, you can do in industry, and vice versa. So it's really too broad to compare these two at that level. So what I want to kind of do is just cover a couple of quick things about stereotypes of both, and let you know and give you some assurance that actually both are really great opportunities. Even if you're interested in the same type of work, you could really do them in both. So when we think of industry, we think of companies that either serve businesses or consumers, and that could be across a wide variety of things like travel, automotive, retail, healthcare, just tech. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of industries, and so you can't really define what's it like to work in industry because it's just so varied. And it's even hard to really describe exactly what's it like being a consultant because it could vary based on the size of the consulting company or the type of consulting you're doing, right? Strategy, management, IT, financial. And so even to say like, well, being a consultant is defined as this, I mean, you could say, yes, it's problem solving for, somebody, but again, it could really vary. So the stereotypes that I remember growing up with and hearing a lot were, well, consulting is just a lot of people do it for a couple years because you're going to learn a lot and it pays really well and you get to travel, but eventually you're going to burn out and then they're going to put you out to pasture in some boring industry job. But in industry, it's a little bit more stable and it's 8 to 5. And there are many students who come in with this mindset that like they come in with like, well, here's my plan. I'm gonna do consulting for a couple of years and then I'm gonna go to industry. And they can't even tell you why they're saying it. They're just repeating what people have told them that's probably the best idea to do. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you could have a long career in consulting or a long career in industry, or you could have a career in both. And so, one thing that we know for sure, right, is that and I will say all those stereotypes that I just mentioned, by the way, are not necessarily true. Industry can be exciting. Consulting can be boring. It really can be it just so depends on your situation and the company you're at and what kind of work you're doing. So one thing we know for sure, right, is in consulting, you're going to be on a client and you're going to be doing some defined work and some kind of project, and that project is going to end. Now you could continue to be with that client. I was with clients sometimes for 3 years, but it's likely that you will be on a client and you'll move to another client, so you'll be changing. Now that client, then when you change to the next client, it could be a different industry, it could be different technology or whatever, different types of problems you're working with. I'm thinking from an MIS standpoint, but there is that potential to change industries and clients, and that's a variety that could be exciting for you, or it could be a little unnerving. You're also in consulting, you're going to take on certain roles. You might be a systems analyst where you're solving problems with building systems, and you do that same role across different industries. But in industry, right, you could be a systems analyst at Southwest Airlines, and your client is the accounting team, and you support the accounting applications, and you go in and do the exact same work you could do at a consulting company, but the difference is it's the same client. It's same industry, so you go deeper in that industry. Those clients. You don't have to you don't have to relearn names and jump around to different clients all the time. So there's some consistency, but the role's the same. Also in industry, they don't want you to come to industry jobs and be bored, so they have rotation programs where you'll do different types of roles within that company. Because again, at an industry company like General Motors, right, they have all types of roles. So you could be doing marketing or finance, accounting, all different types of roles within IT. So I think the key thing here is that you can't just compare industry and consulting and say, I'm going to go after this or that. What you really need to focus on is, do you, are you interested in certain types of roles And do you want variety within the roles you have, or the industries you work within, or the clients, things like that? Because again, there are rotation programs within industry. It lets you go deep in that industry, or you could do different types of have more rotation within clients and the different types of problems you're solving within consulting. I would say that please don't rule out either. In terms of industry and consulting, I'm also seeing this blend between the both of them. And I'll give you an example. I was a systems analyst in consulting. That meant that I would go to a client, I would hear their problem with my team, and we would either custom build software, or we would buy some software and we would customize it for them. But we would basically solve a problem with some kind of system. We'd give it to them and we'd train them, and then we'd leave. And I go to the next client, and we'd solve a new problem with maybe the same software, or we would have new software solving the same problem, or maybe the problem and the software is different. And there was just a lot of change, a lot of variability, and sometimes that variability is frustrating in terms of planning your life, but sometimes it's exciting in terms of learning, and that's what consulting was like for me. But you can do that same role at a company like USAA, which is a bank, right? And you go in, and your client happens to be the banking group that you work with. And so every day you're working with them to gather requirements and to fix bugs in the system that you support, or you are gathering requirements to enhance the system. And I'm again thinking from an IT standpoint. But you can do financial consulting in consulting, and you can do that same kind of financial work within a financial industry. So I think the key takeaway here is, don't rule out either. The stereotypes that you hear about industry and consulting are really starting to kind of fade away. I mean, we clearly know there are some things that you are going to experience in industry if you go to an industry job, and there are some things you'll experience in consulting. But a lot of the roles you can take on really can be done in either. So explore both, and I hope that kind of clears up some of the misnomers that are out there about industry and consulting. If you have questions, post them in the comment section below, and we'll go deeper into this conversation with more detailed questions. All right, hope that helps.